keeping secrets, withholding information, conspiring to be mysterious, loyalty to her false self, smear campaigning, to deceiving others are all methods to how narcissistic mothers often leave their daughters clueless about the story of who she is and who she was before she became her mother. All right, so some narcissistic moms, some moms who have a cluster B personality, such as borderline or histrionic or antisocial personality disorders, often keep secrets. This is something that they're masters at. One of the other things that she often does is she does not share her story behind the story. Okay, she doesn't share with her daughter who she was before she became her mother. This is very often the case. Unfortunately, this deprives her daughter of knowing who she really is. This also deprives her daughter of knowing who she really is. Okay, so not only does the mom not share with her daughter a part of her story, right, or her history, so not only does the mother not share who she was while she was growing up, you know, some of her experiences in life, how she experienced her own family, okay? In other words, her daughter does not really understand who she is because she don't really understand who her mother is, all right? So as she grows up, she's really deprived of understanding some of her ways, you know, why she may do some of the things that she does. Why does she tend to perceive herself in the world and others a particular way as she's growing up? Well, her mother can help her with that because more than likely there are some similarities between her mother and herself. So daughters are deprived in certain ways, and that's actually one of the worst ways to deprive that a mother can deprive her daughter, when she does not share who she was before she became her daughter. Okay, so this is unfortunate, but often the case. Okay, next point. Narcissistic mothers tend to apply their mask to perfection like they apply their cosmetics in order to hide flaws. Who can possibly know her? Okay, so the mother not only applies her mask so perfectly, or nearly perfectly, right? Because she's attempting to hide her flaws. She's attempting to remain mysterious to her daughter. She's attempting, and all of this is for narcissistic supply, of course. But the bottom line is she applies her mask like she applies her cosmetics. And this is to hide, to conceal. Okay, so this is also another way that her daughter is being deprived. She doesn't really know who her mother is. Her mother is a big mystery. Sure, she knows her mother is her mother, but who is she as a woman, as an individual? This is very important because this is a part of her daughter's history that can help her know herself. All right, not only know her mother, but know herself. This does not mean the mother and daughter are carbon copy, but the bottom line is, if a daughter knows her mother before she became her mother, this is a treasure to her. Okay, this is a real treasure because this helps her to understand and understand certain things about herself. But again, of course, the daughter has her own identity. However, the cherry on top is knowing her mother as not only her mother, but as a woman and an individual. By providing poor advice about marriage, parenthood, sex, male and female relationships, and how to resolve conflicts, challenges, and issues deriving from such, is another way that narcissistic mothers like to remain in control. Okay, so this is another way that narcissistic mothers try to maintain that strong sense of control within the mother-daughter relationship. Okay, she gives her daughter poor advice. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, how is that keeping control? Well, because her daughter, as she's growing up, at some point will be curious about marriage, will be curious about sex, will be curious about parenthood. She will be curious about how to resolve conflicts, challenges, and issues deriving from such things. She will be looking to her mother for that. because her mother may be married at the time as she's growing up. Obviously, her mother has had sex because she's on the planet, right? So obviously her mother has been pregnant. Obviously her mother knows something about marriage if she's ever been married before. And even if she has never been married, her mother knows something, obviously, about male and female relationships because, again, she's there on the planet. Meaning her mother had to have been pregnant at some point. Therefore, she has had to have engaged in sex. So her mother knows something about parenthood. She may be a poor parent. She may be a poor model of a parent. But she knows a little bit of something about parenthood because she has obviously fed her daughter at some point, kept the clothes on her back, provided some sort of shelter, or she's reached out for public assistance, or whatever the case may be. At some point, daughters look to their mother for advice about various things in life. When her mother withholds such information, or when she provides poor advice about such, she remains in control because she keeps her daughter dependent. This is how codependent behavior comes into play. Her sense of control remains intact as her daughter's sense of dependence increases over time. Neural pathways to her narcissistic mother are formulated due to biology, habit, epigenetics, and possibly transgenerational or intergenerational trauma. Simply put, her daughter remains dependent or overly dependent upon her mother as her mother works to remain in control of the mother-daughter relationship. Neural pathways to her narcissistic mother is another way that not only overly dependence increases, but this is another way that trauma bonding or a toxic tie to her mother is formulated and probably will remain intact for years to come. And of course, due to biology, habit, epigenetics, and transgenerational or intergenerational trauma, the effects of certain life experiences, such as being homeless, that is probably going to be traumatizing to the parents and grandparents. This is passed on to the offspring. This is where transgenerational and intergenerational trauma comes in. The aftermath of certain experiences that may have been traumatic to the parents and or grandparents are passed on to the offspring. Okay, this is also where epigenetics comes in. This is where the DNA reading is altered due to such things, such as trauma. I want to invite all of my stars especially to do some research on epigenetics, transgenerational, and intergenerational trauma. Like a cult leader, narcissistic mothers send out mixed and confusing messages of where her daughter stands with her and the rest of their family. The bottom line is never clear for the duration of their mother-daughter relationship. Okay, so like a cult leader, narcissistic mothers, they send out mixed and confusing messages to keep the daughter off balance. Okay, to keep the daughter guessing. This is also a form of gaslighting. So the daughter becomes overly dependent upon her mother, even for making decisions that her mother ought to be teaching her how to do for herself. So like a cult leader, the narcissistic mother will send out confusing messages. Therefore, her daughter doesn't know where she stands with her, and her daughter doesn't know where she stands with the rest of her siblings or her father, her grandparents, or maybe even the rest of her family, because the daughter is the one who probably seems to be in limbo. She doesn't have a real seat at the family table, figuratively speaking, and sometimes not even literally. The bottom line is never clear And more than likely, this is for the entire duration of their mother-daughter relationship, unless or until the daughter sees this clearly and chooses to interrupt the dysfunctional behavior pattern. Tool number 1, take steps to discontinue to be emotionally invested in dysfunctional relationships with mothers who have proven not only to be unsafe emotionally, but to be untrustworthy. Narcissistic mothers are often emotionally unsafe to their daughters. Okay, because one thing is that she is grooming her daughter to become codependent. She's keeping her daughter sort of like one who is under arrested development. Her daughter is not really growing up to be who she is supposed to be. All right. In other words, she's not growing up to be a better version of herself. Her mother is not influencing that. Her mother, in a sense, is discouraging that. A mother is supposed to help groom her daughter to become her best as an individual and also as a woman. However, narcissistic mothers often deprived her daughters of this. Okay, so take the steps to discontinue to be emotionally invested in dysfunctional relationships with narcissistic moms. This particular tool has actually been proven to be a game changer to a lot of adult daughters of narcissistic moms. But I want to invite you to try it for yourself if you haven't already. Next tool. Learn how to diffuse guilt that you've been influenced or groomed to feel. Biochemical addiction is the glue that keeps trauma bonding intact. Therefore, it is natural to feel some guilt, if not deep shame, as a result of engaging in a dysfunctional relationship with narcissistic mothers. I want to invite everyone to research biochemical addiction, all right? Because this is often the glue that keeps trauma bonding intact, or a toxic tie to a narcissistic mom intact. This is also where the neural pathways to her narcissistic mother is also kept intact. Practice mindfulness. It will take time and adjustment to learn how to exist as a person who no longer chooses to invest in dysfunctional relationships with narcissistic mothers. Practicing mindfulness is another game changer. This is something that I have found to be a game changer. When you're practicing mindfulness, you're also practicing personal boundaries. What else comes into play? Emotional discipline, as well as assertion, and also self-preservation. So when you combine all of that, it packs quite a punch. Okay, so practicing mindfulness, I have learned for myself, is quite the game changer. Of course, it's going to take time and adjustment on your part to learn how to exist on this planet as a person who is choosing to no longer invest in dysfunctional relationships, not only with her mother, but with others.